Hi everybody, welcome back to Sticks and Stones Wood Carving. I'm Kevin. Good to see everybody here, and today I want to cover a little bit of some of the features on the face, and these are things that are basic generalizations. All right, my opinion, definitely you can play with all of these. For instance, up in here we always are doodling these little cartoons or something. But if you're trying to get your wood spirit to look a little bit nicer and you want semi-realistic features, okay, there are some guidelines you can do, and so we're going to cover a little bit of that, and then we'll try to carve something today and try and use some of the basic rules to see if it can help us in our spirit carving. Okay, and basically, so if you have a face, all right, something like, say we're going to give a face here, all right, and you come down, you make your, it's not going to be a perfect face, so, all right, but what you have up here is your forehead and everything. All right. Underneath that, you would have, say, your eyes. All right. Pretty much like that. All right. Now, what we have is usually the center of the eye. You go straight over, that would be your ears are. All right. Now, like I said before, the eyes are usually split up into like 5 across. They say 1 eye each. All right. So that's a basic rule that a lot of carvers talk about. All right. I don't really go by that. I just kind of eye up my carving, but that's pretty much one of the rules, as they say 5 eyes across would be, those dimensions there. So if you split all this into fives, you would have 1 eye length, 1 eye length, bridge of the nose, all that. But basically, if you came straight down from the corners of the outside of your eye right here, that would be, say, the corners of your mouth. All right, that supposedly would line up with that. And on the inside of the eye here, if you came to the insides here, this right here would be the width of your nose. All right, but you would, of course, this would all adjust. All right, however you would want to do that, playing with it. All right, but the width of your nose is usually in there. That's another dimension that they use. Okay, so those right there, if you keep those features, they're pretty realistic. All right, and you can play with those, especially if you're making fantasy stuff, caricatures, all right, stuff like that. It does not have to be set in stone, like I'm saying. All right, and everybody's going to have a carving that looks different, and sometimes when you change these things up, it definitely makes a big difference in expressions, and that's why carving's so great, and we can play with all these things. So these are just all ideas, and you can change these, especially when you're trying to get different expressions, right? You can give them bigger ears, you can give them smaller eyes, you can give them a huge nose, you can give them smaller noses, and mouths are all different sizes too. But these are generalizations, like I say. They're never really set in stone. They're just basic guidelines for everything. Even on profiles, if you have a head and a big nose sticks out like this, all right, and say your ear is like back here, the head would actually kind of do something like this, all right. And they usually line the ear up with the eye bridge here, stuff like that. Okay. They say that the lips here should actually, the upper lip should stick out just a little bit more than the lower lip, and then the chin actually is behind that. Okay. But not all of that is true. For instance, if you look at a lot of profiles when you're looking at people, especially African American people, Asian people, all right, a lot of times the nose is behind, In flat, for instance, I'm married to an Asian woman, and her nose is definitely behind her lips in the profile. Okay, so it's a generalization. It does not mean that this nose has to be way out here. All right, it doesn't mean you're carving wrong. All right, but it could give you a very cool and fun look. All right, but it does not mean you're carving wrong. All right, so these are all generalizations. You can play with them. Try not to take anything too serious. Don't get all bent out of shape and saying, oh, he told me this or he told me that. Carving is about art. If it looks good to you, people like it, that's what you go with, you know. Have fun with it. That's what it's about. It's not about trying to stick to anything. Don't ever take anything I say and take it too serious, because you might find a better way to do stuff. And if I see somebody that's doing something and I happen to like it, I might change what I do, right? The point is, learn from your experiences, play with them. But these are generalizations you can use, right? For instance, they say you can split this face into thirds, your eyes, and then you have your mouth, right? You can split it into fives. You know, you have the top of your forehead, you have your eye bridge here, right? Or the top of your head, you have the eye bridge, then you have the bottom of your nose, then you have your mouth, then you have your chin, all right? I mean, there's so many different ways we could cut this up. But the basic rule of thumb, like I say, if you want to keep your nose and your eyes, you know, in proportion, just try to go with the corners of the eyes, the inside. That's going to be about where the width of your nose, right? The corners of your eyes here, that's going to be about the corners of your mouth if you're going to do a mouth. And you'll pretty much have it looking the way you want. If not, mess around with it, change it, it'll be fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and do a couple of features. I love these guys. And see what we can come up with today. Oh, I got all kinds of stuff on this paper, don't I? Hold on. Pumpkins, remember those? Halloween. Man, do I have any free paper? So we might do a little bit of drawing on a face. I'm going to try and do another piece of basswood and use some gouges. And we'll try to explain some more about that stuff as we go. Probably not going to draw the face. But we are going to take this chunk of basswood today and use some hand tools again. And we'll see what we can make out of this guy. And we'll practice some more features. And play with them. We'll try to make them stick out. We'll try to make them easy for people to understand if you're using hand tools. And again, you can use your Dremel for this stuff also. But today I'm going back to hand tools, and we're going to try and do something with those. Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, I got my marker out. I got a 2x2 inch thick piece of basswood here, and it's about 5-6 inches long. Nice thick chunk. Might even be a little thicker than 2x2. I'm not really going to measure it, but it's a good start. Something to have. You could use a smaller piece. Maybe I should use a smaller piece for this, but I want to make a carving, so we'll use this for now, and we'll just keep practicing some stuff on it. I guess we'll see where this whole thing goes. But for the beginning, I'm just going to draw a line here and here. Okay, and that's going to represent his brow line. I mean, and we'll come down like about 1.5 inches or whatever, and we'll draw another line going across here, and that's going to be where we start his nose. Okay, something like that. I usually don't draw these on just for video purposes, but I'm going to take my rough out knife, all right, from there, and that's where we're going to start making our first cuts, and we'll start up here. Okay, so I'm just going to come down at an angle, and we're going to cut that brow line in. All right, we're going to come down, relieve up. Same way on this side, come down, relieve up. We're just going to make some small cuts for now. Nothing too big. All right, angle down, angle up, angle down, angle up. Push down, relieve the cut, all right? So it's a stop and relief cut. That's what they call that. Pretty simple, all right? And you start getting that bridge of the nose formed in there also, okay? So that's going to be our first couple of cuts. Let's smooth this off here. These points drive me nuts. These little chunky pieces, the points dig into your hands. So I'm going to quick shave these off. Make it a little bit easier to hold. I don't have really big hands, so not exactly one of them bear paw type guys. Okay, so those are our first couple of cuts. And again, it's just coming down at an angle, relieving up to it and taking that wood out, all right? And this will start forming that eye line, the brow line, and it starts putting that top of the nose in there, all right? And that's what we're doing there. Now I am kind of working my way at a downward angle here when I do this, all right? I don't want to take out too much, but I'm starting to form kind of a downward slope there, all right? You can go straight across also, all right? But that's what I'm doing there, if you want to try and follow what I'm doing, all right? Now we're going to come down here to the nose, and we're going to go straight in, all right? I'm going to take my thumb, push it on the knife, push straight in, all right? And then we'll cut up to that and relieve some of that wood. Now you could push this at a downward angle a little bit at the tip if you want. That's okay. Doesn't really matter, all right? But same thing, and we'll get that nose to start coming out by pushing down, push down, relieve up to it, all right? And that'll start bringing that nose out, all right? So there's your second cut. Starts bringing the nose out. This one's already starting to angle back, okay? Just like that. Now another thing you can do once you get to this point, all right, is you can take your knife, come right to the tip of the nose, and kind of angle that up just a little bit, flattening that part out all the way up to the top, okay? And that'll start kind of rounding that whole thing off, all right? You'll see a little spot where it just kind of flattens a little bit. I'm going to take my time on this and try to explain a good little face with a knife and hand tools today. And we'll try and cover some of the basics for everybody who's starting to work with the hand tools. All right? Okay, I'm going to get my marker out for this. To show you guys. Up in here, we're going to take our marker and we're going to draw a little triangle coming down. Just like that. And like I said, usually about 1 eye width is what this is going to be. This would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3, you know, same on this side. All right. But when I put my eye here, it should separate out to about 5 eyes wide. But that's not a rule. It's just a generalization. So don't feel bad if it doesn't add up, okay? Now I'm going to take, like, this right here is a number 9 gouge, a small gouge. I'm going to come over here to the corner, and what we're going to do is we're going to take some of that wood out, just like this, right up to the brow up here, all right? And then pop it out, keep it deep over there by the corner of the nose. We're going to come over here, we're going to do the same thing. Take some of that wood out, right up into that brow, okay? We're going to try and get it to go across up here also. I'm just going to take some out right into the sides. We're going to scoop that out a little bit, opening it up some, like that. Take some wood out, come across, and try and get pretty deep in the sides of the nose here, all right? Now we could take our knife and we can clean this up. Going towards the center of your nose, all right? Same on this side. And try and get that to blend. And we're going towards the center. Doesn't have to be super clean or perfect at the moment. All right. Just start shaping that nose in there. All right. What we're going to do next is I'm going to angle this nose up. All right. We're going to angle this nose right about here. Okay. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to push in here and take that chip out. All right. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to push in, come up from the bottom and take that chip out. That'll start forming that nose. getting that nose to come up a little bit there, and that natural angle that we get. All right, just like that. Now, if I've not blended in on this side a little bit, I might want to scoop a little bit more wood out there. Just trying to get a nice transition, because when we pop our nostrils in, we want it to be able to just flow right off into the face. Okay, so I'm just cleaning that up a little bit. All right, so now you should have something that pretty much looks like this. Got a little bit of a thing here. And now we can take our gouge and we can start forming the wings of our nose. All right, so I'm going to use the same gouge. All right, I'm going to come over here to the side. Now, this should be a bigger gouge. I wonder if I have a bigger one, because I'm making this nose pretty big. All right. But I'm going to use this one anyway, because like I said, if it's a caricature and it's not a realistic carving, we really don't have to worry. We can play with it. Let's see what he looks like. We'll use this gouge, the same one, since that's the one I have on my table right now without going into my box. I'm going to come over here to the side. I'm going to push that gouge in. All right. Whoops. Just like that. Leaving an indent and starting to form that nostril on that side. Drop my gouge there. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to do the same on this side. I'm going to try and make it about the same. I'm going to put it in just a little bit. Take a look. See, that's a little off center, so I'm going to come over here a little bit more. About there looks pretty symmetrical, so I'll probably deepen that cut now. And I'll give it a twist, right? Just like that. So they're kind of even. That's good enough for me. And that's what we're going to go with for this guy. Okay, now once we have these cut in, I'm going to come over here. And if this isn't cut in good enough, just go straight in. All right. Dig it in. Make sure you give it a twist. All right. Make it deep there. Same over here. Just go straight in. Push it in. Make sure that those cuts are in pretty good before you do this step. We're going to come over here. We're going to scoop this out. And that cut should stay there, okay, if you don't go too nuts with it. And that'll start relieving the wood. This is what's great about using gouges, is that right there is the shape of the nostril. See that? The shape of your sweep and the tool is going to dictate the shape of the cut that you get. So that right there is forming that nostril for me. And then when I take the wood out, boom, I got the bottom of the nose, the flange of the nose, the wing of the nose, whatever you want to call it. All right, that's already in there. And that saves me a lot of work. I'm going to do the same on this side. We're going to scoop some of this out. Okay, don't worry about up here, because we're going to do some more stuff up there. Make sure that's set in. And make sure that you take that wood out. And now your nose is starting to show from the side, and it's forming all that. Now what we're going to do is clean some of this up and thin this nose down by running this up a little bit more again, opening the eyes up really good and getting deep in the corners here. All right, they're going to come straight up again, and we're going to open this. I might even go like this and give myself a little more room here. You want to open this up, give yourself a lot of room up here. Now I'm going to use the same gouge here. See this nostril here? We want to form the top of that nostril a little bit better. So I'm just going to kind of sweep a little bit over there and start bringing that out a little bit more. So I'm coming from here and I'm going over, forming the top of that nostril a little bit better. Okay. And then once we dig in later, you know, we could really have that stand out. So I'm just kind of blending everything to the side, but I'm starting to form the top of that nostril there. All right. And I could even take more out here. All right. And more out right here. And then we can take our knife and start cleaning that up and blending that together. Okay. It's just a matter of refining everything as you go and playing a little bit with different dimensions. And you can round off your nose a little bit on the bottom here. Okay. and you start refining it. A lot of times when I'm doing YouTube videos, especially with the Dremel, I'm blasting through stuff. So I'm going to take my time and cover a little bit of this a little bit better. And hopefully it'll help some people out, especially if you want to play with hand tools. This is the way I would probably mess around and make this type of nose anyway, unless I'm going with a super long nose or a really short nose for a different, maybe a pointy little fairy nose or something. They're all different, all right? But this is one way you can start getting those noses to shape up a little bit and have a better understanding of how to get this type of nose anyway, all right? I'm going to shave it off a little bit, clean it up, and not have it real pointy or flat. Okay. All right, let's move on from there. Now, the only thing I would do there, if I wanted to make maybe those nostrils a little bit nicer, or if they're chipped up or whatever, take your detail knife ever so slightly and just kind of clean that out. Extend them a little if you want. Get that nice little hook going, okay? Be careful and leave that little piece of wood in the middle here so that you're definitely getting that septum, all right? So that's all. You can clean that out with your detail knife. And pretty much his nose is done, all right? Except for a little bit of cleanup. Of course, we're always doing that. But that's one way you could do a nose with some of your hand tools. Let's move on and see what we could play with next. Okay, now there are ways to make he's got a decent little nose on him, all right? But there are ways, sometimes you want to put a hump or something, all right? You can, let's do this with the marker so you get the idea here. We could take our knife and we can angle this brow down a little bit more, all right? Kind of this way and this way, okay? Forming kind of a point at the top here, all right? And basically, if I took my knife and I followed that angle and I just pushed it down just a little bit, say on this side, all right, we're going to push it down, take our knife, pop that out, okay. Same over here, I'm going to kind of push down a little bit, take that out, all right. And it's going to start pushing that nose back just a little bit. Right, just repeating it, push down, round it off a little bit at the top, and now his nose will start getting a little hump going back and under that eyebrow, all right? You don't have to make too big of a cuts. You could take little ones till you get exactly the shape you want, and start, can you see that? Against the black maybe. I'm starting to push just a little bit back further at the top, to get that nose to go up and under just a little bit more. Without having to go too crazy with it and have to take his forehead back really far to get that to stick out, okay? Just making a nice little bump there, and you can see that angle starting to go back, all right? I could form it really tough by doing that, pushing straight back at the end of all that, and it'll really start going back. So there's lots of ways to do this. Nothing is set in stone. You could play with it until you get the type of shape that you're looking for. See how it comes down now and then goes down? Same down here. You could make a ball at the bottom, all right, with another little cut. That's just kind of like a V. All right, go up, down, and then you could start getting a ball here, and you could shave that and blend that, and it'll make his nose not so perfect. Give it a little bit of a scoop here, and give him more character all around. Now, I could do this really deep, or I could just do it slightly. And every little change you make with your knife is going to change the shape of his nose and the look of your carving, okay? See, now it's just animated a little bit, okay? And again, at the bottom, You round it off a little bit and you'll start getting that ball. All right. Now, once we have our nose all shaped, he's starting to blend pretty good together. What we'll do is we'll start working on his other features, and hopefully you'll have an idea of how to get a nose started anyway with just your knife and a gouge. Okay? See that? Okay, let's move on. Okay, what I'm going to do here is just clean up just a little bit more, because I want to be able to make room for the eyes. So we'll clean all this up just with our number 9 gouge and just make sure everything's kind of smoothing out and transitioning the way we want. So by the sides of the nose right here, the bridge, I'm going to make sure I open that up. All right. Just with some light shaves, cleaning up. Clean up the sides of the nose and make sure we stay deep in the corners here. Okay, there and there. Okay, I'm going to round this bottom part off here. I'm going to take my detail knife. I'm going to take my detail knife, my rough out knife. I'm just going to round this corner off just a little bit. Shave some of those lines off. And we'll just lightly shave this, round it over a little bit, and it'll be easier to form a simple mouth. Okay. Always check your side profile. You can shave with your knife with little scooping cuts down too if you want. All right. Make sure that blends out to the sides. Okay, let me just clean this up a little bit so it's easier for showing you guys what I'm doing. Just hitting it with a little bit of 220, getting the chips out because there are cuts in there that aren't showing. So good. Right up in here, I said if you have you don't have enough shadow, just take your knife and kind of take some of that out. Okay. Same on both sides. And try and even everything a little bit as you go. If you want it to be, you know, looking a little more symmetrical. It's just a matter of playing with it and adjusting things. You see right here on the side, you can definitely see where that septum comes down. All right. If it's not quite, like right here, it doesn't look right if I look down from the top. So I want to try and adjust that a little bit without breaking anything. I might have to take more out there. It's just a matter of playing with it and checking it at all angles. Look at it from this direction. See what needs to be cleaned up. Use your knife or a gouge. Sometimes you just have a little chip in there that's throwing it off. Your carving can get thrown off by lots of things. If you're, like I was saying in my last video, if you carve a little too deep, that can always be fixed, but you're going to have to adjust your whole face, all right, to whatever depth you're doing if you want to, if you're going for a certain type of look, okay? You might have to readjust certain features. Sometimes just the eyes alone will make your carving look bad and you think you have to go deeper, and that's not the case. It's just your eyes are off, all right? Sometimes your nose is off, all right? The cheeks, a lot of different things. I know I rush when I'm doing with my Dremel, and sometimes I'm just teaching and I won't sit there and tweak my carving, but afterwards when I'm done making a video, I'll go back and I'll go, oh boy, that's, you know, really bad. So I'll fix it and then clean it up. Sit back, look at it, play with it. Doesn't mean it has to be done just because the video's over. And then I'll clean it up to the point where I can sell it, you know, or give it away at least without being too embarrassed. Because sometimes you're not covering everything in a video. If you can get one thing out of it, that's all that matters. Like I said, there's a lot of us that have channels. If you get one thing from this channel and you go over to another channel and you get something else, you use what works for you. I have a kind of like a martial arts attitude towards, because I've done martial arts most of my life also. And my thing is, use what is useful. Discard what is not, okay? So if something's useful to you in this video, take it, use it. If I say something that's not useful to you, discard it. And that's just how you learn. And that's how you develop your own style also, right? You'll get tips from everybody, and nothing is set in stone, okay? Make stuff your own. Everyone will have their own different things. And learn. And that's the best way to learn. I feel like right here, see this line coming down? I want to have that at least on this side too. So I'm going to take this nostril in just a little bit more with my knife. I'm just going to deepen that a little bit and try and get that line to at least even out. And then I'll take a little bit of wood from the top and try and relieve that a little bit, okay? So I'm trying to get it to look pretty much like the other side and have the same dimensions. And when you slow down and you stop and you look at things like that, you'll really see just where he's off and what you want to adjust, okay? All right. Now we can come down here and start making a mouth. These right here are our smile lines, like I said. I'm going to deepen that on this side for a minute by running my line. I don't know why I'm using a beaver craft knife in my hand when I have other knives that work better. Not to disrespect beaver craft. They're good for what they are good for, you know. And that's another thing. Hand tools, you could use cheap hand tools. You could use good hand tools. Start with a cheap set. You know, learn the basics. I mean, they should work for you. If not, take them to somebody who knows how to sharpen them and put a good edge on them. If your knife isn't cutting, take your freaking strop out. Big thing about stropping your blade, hold it flat for the most part, for most blades. Take a couple of swipes, put it down on your strop, push the other direction. Take a couple of swipes, right? See if that works better for you. Usually that's just enough to make that knife do what you want, okay? Unless there's a big chip out of your blade or your gouge, stropping should be sufficient, right? And who knows, there's probably somebody out there with better advice on that, that's for sure. I'm not a master sharpener or anything, but for me, it works, okay? I find out unless my blade has a chip, pretty much stropping does the trick for me. But you should strop your knife often. But then again, I was talking to Just Carve Rob the one day about stropping. We were having a conversation, and I was telling him I think I'm going to strop my knife less, because over stropping to me actually kind of folds the bevel down on the knife, and then I end up having to regrind my knife and everything else. So when I strop very little. I mean, I strop often, but very little. You know, like I said, I'll take my blade, go like this, and that's pretty much all I do to keep my blade sharp, okay? I don't sit there and make 30 strokes or count my strokes and all that stuff. If it's not quite right, I'll do it on the other side, and, you know, maybe I'll strop it again, maybe not. Okay, he's starting to look kind of cool. Let's see, do we want to put a mouth on him? Do I want to stop the video here, or we want to keep going? I guess we could start doing maybe a simple lip here or a mustache. Okay, I want to make a point here that, see over here in the corner, this side of his nose I really like. If you're going to really keep going, and I'm going to sit here and I'm going to carve, all right, and I want to make sure I have good depth and all that. And then I push in here really hard, and I take that chip out, like I did right here. And I'm trying to get deeper in there to get more shadow, say, okay? I can screw it up when I already had it fine and he was looking good. And now, this is too deep, okay? And I actually took a piece of my nostril off there. Okay, and if you look at the nose, it's uneven now. So now I'm going to have to come over here and adjust this whole side of the face, this whole side of his nose, to try and make that even. Or I can just leave it the way it is. But now it's definitely not even. Okay, and I like this side better than I do this side. even though that shadow is really nice to have in there. But you can, like I said in the last video, carve too deep. And that's the only point I was making there. All right. If you got it and it's working, leave it alone. You don't have to try and go deeper to try and get more shadow. You could do that with other things, you know, and other features. But now I'm going to have to adjust this side to try and make his nose look a little bit more symmetrical, or I have to leave it be and just hope nobody notices. Okay. Which in this case, I might just take his nostril down here a little bit more and see if I can play with that and make it look at least so it's not so bad. But there's a definite difference between this side and this side now. All because that cut was just a little so deep. Too deep. So if it doesn't need it, you don't have to keep going. If it's not deep enough, definitely make it deeper. But the whole point there is if you keep going, I'll show you some photos. I know I did a photo of I did a Native American recently in cottonwood bark. And I had a really good nose like this. And what happened was I kept carving up here. You know, I wanted to dig them in. I wanted to get a bigger bump. See this bump up here? Well, basically what I was doing was I was doing this, right? And I got so far in, it was really looking good. I made one more cut and the whole nose fell off, all right? So I didn't have that good profile that I was looking for in my Native American. And I ended up having to recarve the whole thing, and he ended up looking this little flat nose guy, all right? And I sent the picture to a couple of people, and they cracked up, and we laugh about it and stuff, and it's a big deal, you know. As far as, it was funny. I mean, it really was. But that's the whole point. If you're going to sit there and you're going to make something and you want to keep going when he looks good, you might want to change your way of thinking and say, you know what, that's fine. I don't need to go any deeper, you know. And other times, if he doesn't look good or he's really shallow, definitely carve it deeper, okay? And that's the whole point I was making in that video. If you go a little too deep, sometimes you can actually screw up your carving, especially in spots around the nose, which I just did here, okay? Just trying to clean them up because I want to get a little more depth over here in the corners because I wanted to make a nice mouth or, you know, a mustache. So be aware of that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to come up here and start working on these eyes a little bit. I think I'm going to take this forehead down a little bit here. All right. I don't want too much shadow up here. So I'm just going to take this down some. And we'll start trying to explain another way you guys can do eyes, especially if you wanted to make like caricatures or, you know, or if you're just using hand tools and you want some experience in all kinds of ways. I know we've been covering eyes on the channel, and let me try to go in depth a little bit more and a different way you can do it besides just using your knife and a V-tool. You also have gouges and veiners, and there's all kinds of ways to form your eye mounds here. Well, first of all, when I get over here, I'm going to take that number 9, if I can find it. I do have it somewhere. For all I know, it fell on the floor. I always drop my tools. There it is. Okay. And I want to get over here in the corners. I'm just going to take a little bit more wood out by the top of the nose here. Okay. Give myself some room on both sides. Because that is going to be the deepest point, okay, when we're going to start forming these eyes. Now, let's get our marker here, and I'll show you a couple ways you can do this. Well, I'll show you a new way, hopefully. I don't know if we covered this or not. Let's see. Let's take 2 lines like this, all right, coming across. If you want to leave yourself a little room up here, you can actually make them go down a little bit or lower them, all right? But for the most part, it's just pretty much 2 lines going straight across or with a downward slope, which makes him look a little more interesting. And we're going to come over here in the corners. Well, this corner especially, All right. That's why you want your nose pretty taken down up here on the top. All right. So let's focus on right here. And let's take a little veiner. Something with a pretty good little sweep, but not a huge one. All right. As far as a bigger one, you know, you don't, in other words, you don't want to sweep this big. Okay. So I got a small one here. I'm going to make a little hole right here. I'm going to kind of dig down, dig up. I'm going to start putting a little bit of a divot right here. Just like that. You see that? I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'll carve down from the top and then carve up from the bottom. And try and make myself a little hole there. Think of a, I don't know, you could think of it as a tear duct that maybe you're going to form. But basically, we want that depression on both sides. If I could do this, the camera's in my way. Like I said, I hate carving with a camera in front of me. I really need to hold this on my lap, but hopefully you'll get something out of this. I don't know if it's going to help you or not, but we did cover other ways to do eyes. But I'm going to make 2 holes here, okay? Just like that. Then I'm going to take a good size. This is my number 9. I'm going to come over here to the corner. And I'm going to scoop out some wood. You know how I'm always talking about making a divot on the sides of the face? All right. So I'm going to scoop out right there at the end of the eye. All right. Pretty good. Like that. Don't worry about up there. It's just right here at the corner. All right. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take some wood out right at the end of that. Okay. Divot, divot. I like to make that pretty deep on the sides. All right. Now he's definitely got some different depths going on, right? Well, what this is going to do with our next move, because we have a hole here and a hole here, we're going to take, if I can find it, you could use a veiner for this. I'm using a small gouge, and I'm going to come up here at the top, and I'm just going to carve across just a little bit and into that hole. Okay, just like that. On the top. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to carve into that hole. And come straight across. Now this works better with a veiner, but the one I have here is really small, so I'm just using this little gouge. And that's going to start forming a lot of that eye mound. All right. Now, if I use the little veiner, it might be a little too small for what I want here. I don't want it to have a V-tool effect, but pretty much that's what we're doing. And by making that hole over here on the side and taking this out, it's already starting to form your eye mound, is the whole idea here. So once you take wood out here and wood out there, you run across the top. Okay. Go into that hole that we cut. Come across the bottom. I'm going to make sure this is about the same. And go into that hole. Okay. And now I'm starting to form some eye mounds. I got to come from the top down up here and into the hole. And now I'm starting to form eye mounds. You see that? So this is another way you could do that. And then you can always redraw this line going across. All right. So that's another way we can do that. And then we can shape that up and we can start getting some eyes in this guy. Okay, so we got our upper lid here. All right. Let's push that right down into that hole that we made, all right? And over here. Now, the upper lid is always going to overhang the lower lid, all right? That's an important thing when you're doing eyes also. So let's make sure before we put our lower lid in that it's definitely going to be underneath that upper lid. This upper lid would extend, in other words, down to here. All right, the lower lid, we're going to cut in, and we're going to go right up into that little hole again. All right, but make sure that this upper lid covers that lower lid. All right, a little bit by extending it down. So you might have to make sure when you stop cut your upper lid, take that a little bit more past the lower lid. All right, then we're going to shave up. Let's shave up to get that upper lid to stand out. I got a lot of marker on this, so I'm hoping you guys can see it. This upper lid here, I got to recut. Before we start our lower lid, you want that upper lid cut in. Okay. I think this flex cut's going to need to be stropped. Just a little bit. Okay, because it's going to extend down. See how far it's extended down here? I know the marker line's in the way. And on this side, I want to make sure I bring it down enough. I got to clean up in here a little bit. Hold on. Make sure that upper lid goes in pretty good. Far enough down so that when we do create the lower lid, here's my veiner here. I think I'm going to have to use this little veiner to get this to clean up a little. Okay. Got some chips in there I want to get out. Cleaned it up just a little. All right, so your upper lid's going to come down. Your lower lid, I'm going to use this veiner that I have, and I'm going to cut that in. And make sure that it doesn't go as far as the upper lid, all right? It's underneath that upper lid. So I'm going to start it there. I'll cut the lower lid in with this little veiner. And again, make sure you're going into that little hole that you cut on the side, and make sure the upper lid covers it. Can you see that? The upper lid actually goes over the lower lid here. Okay? And over the lower lid here. Then we're going to take our knife and we're going to just round this down into that lower lid. Okay. So just push down, and try and get that eyeball round. Again, the more you cut out in the corner here, the more round that eyeball is going to be, because it really is round. Oh, I'm dropping tools again. All right. I know we all start with football shapes, but the eye is not football shaped. All right. Inside, it's actually a ball. All right. So when you draw your lines on, you actually make a football shape. A lot of us do that. But when you're rounding it off, get deep in those corners, because this is a ball inside. The only reason it looks like a football is when you close your eye. That's what it looks like. But inside, it's actually a ball. All right. And it should be a ball. All right. So we're trying to round that off. And the more you go in the corners, the more you'll be able to do that. Okay. So try to round that off and keep it deep in the corners and get a ball shaped in there. All right. On both sides. Trying to lower this down. Trying to get that ball. Okay. And trying to keep it inside with this upper lid, if you have to extend it, stop, cut it, take a little bit of wood out, all right? Make sure your upper lid extends a little bit past that. Okay, so you can keep that lower lid right here going under it. All right, don't let it go all the way to the corner with the upper lid, if that makes sense. Okay, let's try it over here. We're going to stop cut across, making it pretty big and exaggerated so you guys can see this. All right, stop cut your upper lid, take some wood out, shave up to it. And again, as we shave, we're still trying to maintain a little bit of roundness. So I'm going to do it a little bit more in the corner here, all right, to try to keep that round shape going. Trying to make sure it's in the camera for you. And ever so slowly and slightly take some wood out. Some little scoop cuts, rounding that off. And in the corner, definitely get deep. And you'll see it's starting to form that roundness there, all right? We'll round off as we go. And try to get your upper lid to stand out by taking the wood out from underneath it. And make sure you stop cut that upper lid and get some wood taken out underneath it, okay? Just like that. This one over here is going to need a little bit of cleanup. That's not a problem. The whole idea is to show you how to do these type of eyes. Now we have to draw our lower lid on. And we got to make sure the upper lid covers it. Because when he closes his eye, that's what's going to happen, all right? The upper lid is going to cover the lower lid. Okay, let's stop cut that. Get the point of your knife, put it in. Make sure to see our upper lid actually goes to over here, all right? So I'm coming a little before that. Stop cutting. Coming straight in, all the way across, into the corner, that little hole that we put there, all right? And then shave down and try and get that to round off. And you'll see that that's going to start making that eye round. Okay. And again, if you got to take a little more out of the corner, get deep, that's what you do. That'll help round it off even more. Which is what we're going for. Okay. Start forming that ball. And make sure, I'm trying to cover the important points. Making sure the upper lid extends past the lower lid is a big one. Okay. And making sure the corners of your eyes here are pretty deep. All right. Because the rounder you can make that eyeball, the better. All right. Round, round. If it's not round enough, cut those corners, but keep your upper lid overlapping your lower lid. I'm hoping I can get that from this side. For some reason, this side always gives me a hassle. I'm definitely not perfect either, guys, so a lot of you say, oh, you make it look easy. It ain't easy. I struggle with it too a lot. You know, depends on the wood, depends on how sharp my knife is. Depends on how much I slept, which I never really seem to do half the time anymore. I sleep a couple hours and I'm up. But, yeah, now we have two nice little round eyeballs anyway, all right? And I could play with this and clean that lid up by cutting up here and making that upper lid stand out a little more too as we go. Now, underneath, if I want that lower lid to really stand out, I'd take my veiner again. All right. I wish I need a bigger veiner. I got to get one out of my box. I'll use the gouge here. But I'll take some wood out. All right. Underneath that. And it'll start making that little pucker there. I have to smooth some of this wood out first, and then I'll use the little veiner. That's the needle veiner. That's a little too little. That's a V-tool. Where is my little veiner? I don't want to use too small of a veiner. I definitely don't need my needle veiner. That's a little too small. Again, probably on the floor. Hold on. Yep. There it is. I'm working in a pretty small space here. But I'm taking that little veiner then after that, right? And I'm just going to take some wood out here and start forming that bag. All right. Okay, and you can start forming a nice little bag under your eye there by taking the wood out. And that'll make him look more interesting. And it just all adds to the charm. And, of course, the more wrinkles and bags you give him, the older he's going to look. All right? And if you're doing, you know, like a female or something like that, a child, you don't want to give them that many bags because, of course, that's just going to make them look older when you're going for a young look, right? So that right there is how I would do some eyes. And then, of course, we'll put our pupils in and stuff. And that right there is pretty much how I'd go about it. And I'd clean this up a little bit, of course. And I'd tweak it. And again, when you're trying to teach, it's just not the same as holding it on my lap. I mean, my eyes are older. I'm holding it away. I can barely see where I'm cutting, to tell you the truth. But trying to teach you the basics. And like I said, you might find there's plenty of easy ways to do eyes. Easier. But if you're looking for another way, this is just one other way. Like I said, it's not set in stone. I didn't invent anything that I do. Well, I can't say that. I probably had my share in doing some things, I'm sure. We all have our own ways of doing things. I have a lot of shortcuts I take sometimes, which just make things easier for me. But this is one traditional way you can carve eyes. If you were doing a caricature, if you're doing even realistic eyes, you know, there's different ways. But for the most part, the techniques are the same with hand tools and with power tools. And it's always the same as far as basics go. And the basics are that eye is round, the eyeball, okay? You can start by drawing a football shape, but when you get down to carving these eyes, make the eyeball as round as you can, and you'll be on your way to at least having a little bit more of a realistic eye anyway. Which even if we're going semi-realistic, it gives our work a little bit better look. And I know everyone has trouble with eyes, including me. I'm always ending up digging them up when I don't have my visor on because I just can't see. And sometimes the wood will just give you a hassle, okay? But get those corners cut in. Get that shadow in there. And you do that by getting deeper in the corners. And keep your upper eyelid definitely extended a little bit more than that lower eyelid. All right, and that's where this is here. All right, that lower eyelid, it doesn't look it here because of the marker, but it's definitely not as long as the upper eyelid. And then the bag is what's making the bags coming over there. Now I could take that bag and push it up into that corner too. All right, so there's all kinds of different ways you could do this, but that is one of the more basic ones. Tried to explain. I'm hoping I'm being as clear as I can. in this video. And like I said, in this video, you might catch something, and then the next video, it might make more sense to you. I don't know. But that's pretty much how I would do eyes. Now, I'm probably going to leave this video here. Maybe we'll keep this little block of wood. We covered a nose pretty good. We covered the eyes, hopefully. I'm going to clean it up, get it towards me where I can see. And maybe I'll use this block of wood and we'll continue a face in the next video. So I hope this helped everybody. You should be able to carve a nose fairly decent with hand tools now, hopefully. And if you have any questions, just hit me up, let me know. And that's how we would do a face with some hand tools. And I hope this helped if you're trying to experience working with some hand tools. Okay, I cleaned him up a little bit. And when I went through the footage to go to edit the video, at the end here, I noticed that 2 of the clips didn't take. And the one was coming under here and doing the nostrils. So what I want to do is show you that here, where the when we're putting them in. I just took a gouge, right? A small gouge. All right. And I put it underneath here. All right. And I scooped. Just pushed it in and I scooped. All right. Just to get that out. And the big important part is to leave this septum in the middle. All right. Make sure that you have that. All right. And just take some wood out of there just like that. All right. You can clean it out with your gouge. You can also then go in with your detail knife with any of that, you know, and just clean anything out. And make sure that you have that separation in between the nostrils here, right? You have one nostril here, one there. And you can clean it out and shape it a little bit with your detail knife. But that's how I did that, okay? And then I cleaned everything up, of course, with my knife. And I hit it with a little bit of sandpaper towards the end to clean them up because we're going to continue on this face. But I do want to make sure I covered how to do that, and I went in depth on it, and it was basically just scooping your nostrils out with a gouge from underneath here and making sure that you have that septum, that separation in between this piece right here in the center, okay? So that's what we did there, and that's how I got that effect, all right? So thanks a lot, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.